So I was involved in an interview the other day. We were interviewing for a like manager level, kind of like inventory and like production planning role for a production facility that I am very familiar with. And I was interviewing in the kind of swing of things because I'm gonna be training this person. The person that was in the role left. I'm pretty familiar with what they were doing, so I'm gonna be one of the three or four people to train this new employee. And everyone else I knew had done like resume interviews, like, oh, you have this in your resume, how do you do that, how do you do this, what's your background, social questions, because I know the people that were ahead of me, they're social people at heart, and I'm more technical. So I asked a lot of questions, and my boss is in this interview. He's one of the social people I'm talking about. I asked some technical questions. I was the last person to interview this girl, and um, it was very apparent to me very fast that she's an administrator. And by that, I mean someone that kind of controls, organizes the flow of things, and likes to have processes and structure, and likes to build up what she wants to have happen, and then just make sure that everything stays in the nice, neat lines day to day. Cool. People like that are great. They get a lot done. They're effective. They tend to be longer term employees as well because they like the stability and the structure they've built around themselves. But two things happen with people that are administrative in that manner. One, they they don't look at the situation and just try to determine, do I fit into this situation, right? Now, she'd be fine. She was highly qualified. I FYI, I signed off, gave her a thumbs up. But the point here being, administrator type people like that very commonly come into a chaotic situation, and they can't impose the structure they need right away. And they not really fall flat, but they get so frustrated with the situation that they leave. And this girl didn't ask any questions that suggested to me that she was trying to figure out like what the setting was going to be like. Um, and it sounds like earlier interviews she hadn't asked a lot of like technical questions in that manner either. And I asked a lot of technical questions to her about like, hey, what do you think about this thing, how does this work, asking her to describe and explain like structural process things that she'd need to be able to do. And she answered the questions just fine. She struggled a little bit with some of the math, which not everyone's a good math person. You don't need to be for a lot of roles, so it's not a big deal. But I always like to ask the question just to see how they pan out. And when I gave feedback, I said, hey, this is a good employee, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you're going to have these two issues if you bring her in. And these issues being, she's going to be stressed out by this sort of thing. And the chaos you have over here and some of the things you don't have really well organized right now, because this is a newer operation. Okay. They set up, in the last couple of years, they're going through growing pains. So I was like, some of these things that you don't have super well organized, she's going to want to organize. And I don't know that she'll have the bandwidth to do it, and it's going to stress her out. So, got to think about that one. And I gave that feedback, and I got the usual like, oh, John's harder on this person than we are. We like her. It's fine. And I'm like, I started my email with good employee, and I ended my email with I approve. But there was some negativity in the middle of like, hey, here's some weaknesses that are going to be a thing, and I got negative feedback for saying that. What people don't realize is not everyone's a moldable like piece of silly putty that you can stick into a situation and they fit nice and neatly. I mean, I'm not that way. You're not that way. I almost guarantee you. Some people think they can do anything, but they wouldn't like doing anything if they actually were able to, right? And that's kind of what I was getting at. Now, the biggest red flag that I ran into with this girl is when I at the end of the interview said, okay, so based off this interview, any questions, any thoughts for me? And I had opened the interview, me and my boss, by explaining like, oh, I'm gonna be training you on a bunch of these things. I'm kind of covering for your role in between looking for whoever gets hired into this and you if you get the job. And she asked me zero questions on what was technically happening in the role, things that I was covering, anything like that. And I'm just like, this person has no idea they're walking into a mess. Now, to be fair, she might have been used to like chaotic work environments. I don't know. Maybe she's just like, hey, it couldn't get worse. It's probably going to be better, or it's going to be the same anywhere else I go. Cool. And the place she's walking into isn't like a super, super chaotic area. There's just a few things like, they've grown significantly in the volume of stuff that's happening in their operating location. So not everything's perfectly organized, right? But if you don't even ask those questions in an interview, that's a big red flag for a lot of people.